would be most useful for you in our conversation today?
Well, I have a few questions I want to ask. Well, first of all, I haven't started studying for the logical reasoning and reading comp, but I've had some practice before. But what would be an efficient way to study for, logical reasoning and reading comp?
Yeah, sure. So my study plans, which you have, they laid out in general terms. Basically, you read the articles related to a certain question type, watch the course lesson videos on that type, then do several practice problems of that type out of the prep test. And I have them all categorized by logical reasoning types. You can work on necessary assumptions, sufficient assumptions, strength and weaken, etc. I pretty much lay it all out there, but if you have more detailed questions, I'm happy to consider them.
Okay. I guess I could start because with logical reasoning, I try to go, by question types and everything, but every time, like, I try follow, like the task of like each question type, it's just not going great. But if I just go with my gut, I'll do better. I don't know why.
No, I hear that. And a lot of times your pure instincts can serve you really well on the relatively easier questions. But on the tougher ones that really push the limits of your working memory, that's where it can often fall apart. Do you
Yeah.
find that you're doing well on everything, or are you having trouble on the harder ones still?
Well, yeah, the harder ones. Typically I would get like on average like 8 questions out of like 25. So, whereas logic games, I would get like 18 out of like 22 questions.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I'll
so
do better. Yeah.
so there's still work to be done in logical reasoning, and those tougher questions, that's why you need to be able to apply the strategies. And for a top score, you want to know why the strategies work to be able to reverse engineer the formulas in a sense. And that's what I walk you through in the courses. And so I would suggest dig into I know you're just starting off. You said you're in week 2, right? So still there's still a lot to dig into with the logical reasoning and the reading comp course lesson videos, and that will unlock a lot of it for you. But what I would want you to pay special attention to on the more difficult questions would be the review process, engaging in really in-depth review of everything you get wrong and everything you have difficulty with. So slowing down and doing fewer questions, but reviewing them in more detail. I think that will really be the key for you to better understand those tougher questions.
Okay. The second question I have would be like, how do I pick up speed working through logic games?
So you get faster at anything by getting better at it, by understanding it on a deeper level. But with logic games specifically, I think getting more of an intuition in terms of making more inferences up front or even more main diagrams up front, knowing when to split a game into multiple options based on a key variable in the game or a key inference in the game. That's especially limiting. That gives you a general framework of only a couple of paths you can go down. And so more practice will open that up to you. But if you can keep an eye towards those major inferences, I think that will help you solve them more efficiently.
Okay. Because I did try to do like time last weekend, and it's just like I would get like 3 out of 5 questions instead of like, but then some like easier games will be like I would get full credit. So
Yeah, so it'll be practice. I think the easier games, like anything else, they come more naturally to you just based on the intuition. But the tougher games, you've got to have a sense of what the inferences are, different efficient ways you could use to unlock the games. And so watch the course videos, watch my video explanations for the vast majority of games. You could actually see how I walk through them. And you don't have to do my way exactly, but it's at least one potential way to give you a new way to look at it.
okay. Okay. Yeah. I guess just more practice. So the third questions will be, how many practice tests should I do in a month, given that I want to take the test in July?
Well, for now, I wouldn't do any. I would focus on learning the basics first and building the foundation for now. But as test day gets closer, I would say you want to do maybe 1 or 2 time tests per week. So based on your schedule, based on your availability, if you have nothing else going on, you could do 2 a week, no problem. But if you have other obligations, maybe you want to do only 1 per week. But I wouldn't typically recommend doing more than 2 or 3 a week max, because you never want to do them on consecutive days. And you want to have enough time to engage in that detailed review like I talked about. So as you look, we're speaking now early April. between now and July 13th, what other obligations do you have?
I don't have anything right now, so because I just graduated in December. So right now I'm doing this full time. And with this, COVID-19, I, can't find a job or work or anything. So, and I also think this is a perfect time to study.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. You can really make the most of this time for the next 3 months with much less in the way of competing obligations or demands on your time. And so buckle down and focus and you can knock it out.
Yeah, because I also, we talked about how like the 4-month plan and like the 5-month plan, but I feel like there's a lot of days off, which I feel like I want to do more each day. And then, I really like the days off though. I feel like we need it, because after do like 5 games, I'm kind of like, like I can't do it. I need a break. You know what I mean? So it's good. But I do want to take the July test because it's at 12:30, and I took the test back in December at 8:30. And I watched one of your videos was saying how like after you wake up, your brain is not fully functioned yet. And I think that is so true. Like now I don't do that anymore. Like when I wake up, I work out, do other things for like 2 hours, and then I study.
Awesome.
But I don't want to wait until August because August is the morning test again. And I feel like I want to give like the July test a shot, being that it's in the afternoon.
Well, you've got more than enough time to prep for July since especially you have no other obligations. And so if you want more work, I can send you more work. I can give you even a longer term plan that you can work through at a faster pace. At the same time, though, it is important for you to take days off because you don't want to burn out, especially if most socializing is off limits these days due to stay-at-home orders and such. You can really go nuts just focusing on LSAT alone. So I would suggest take some days off. Take some days off. If you want more work, I will send you more work to do. You could also simply do more practice problems of each type, or you can work through the schedule at a faster pace. And then you'll have even more time for full-length timed exams as test day approaches.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I guess like for digital tests, right? What would be the best approach? Because there's only so many questions to display on the screen. What would be, yeah.
So, I mean, there's no way around the technical limitations of the tablet, obviously. And so given that situation, you've got to practice for it. So in reading comprehension, you can't see the passage and the questions at the same time. So that may test your short-term memory a little bit more or require a bit more switching back and forth. And so if you're used to studying out of books where you have everything available to you with like a bird's eye view, you have to adjust to that. So a lot of it simply is adjusting and being ready for it. And LSAC just put out the official LSAT Prep Plus. So you can do the digital LSATs in the exact same format you'll have on test day. And I would also say, of course, get a tablet, study with a tablet, practice the tests on the tablet. Also get used to using scratch paper, especially for reading comp if you want to take any brief notes. And for logic games, where you're going, again, looking back and forth between the scratch paper and the screen. As for only one question at a time specifically, where you can't see the entire spread of games questions or reading comp questions, where you might have previously wanted to jump around a bit more, maybe you want to see, does jumping around still make sense for you when you have to click left and click right versus having the bird's eye view? Or do you want to just do them in order? I still think clicking left and right could work, but everybody's different, and you've really just got to figure it out for yourself in a way what you personally like. I don't think there's always a right or wrong answer on this.
Okay. Because there's like different strategies, but like even logic games and stuff, like there's certain questions you answer first. Because I know the plan of attack, local, orientation, local, and global.
Yeah.
So, you jump around because sometimes global could be like, question number 2 or, yeah.
Okay, so if you have no clue on that one, I would just say flag it, skip it, come back to it at the end of the game. I don't personally find it to be too much work to skip it and go back. Other people get stressed out when they're jumping around, but the good news is that this is not a Scantron anymore. And so the misbubbling is much less of an issue. You can see that you're exactly bubbling in for question number 3. And you can see at the bottom with the navigation bar, you can see what you've bubbled in and what you have not bubbled in.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Well, yeah. The last question I have would be, how do I cope with test anxiety? Because I'm not very good, like with testing in general. Like I get nervous, I get, and especially with the digital test, it's like the clock is on the upper right corner where you just read the question, you see the time and you just like, oh, I just lost another 5 minutes, another 2 minutes. I can't afford to lose anymore. So you ended up like rushing through and not going, through the question efficiently.
Yeah, so for the clock, personally, I remove the clock. There's a way to click it so it disappears until you're down to 5 minutes. So personally, I like doing that just so that I don't have as much of that stress of seeing the numbers moving. Once you hit 5 minutes, you can't do anything about it, unfortunately, but at least for 30 minutes out of the 35, that's not an issue. So I like to do that to remove one little stressor. And I think part of doing well on a timed test is being able to avoid getting bogged down, being able to avoid getting stuck. So if you notice yourself getting bogged down, just skip it, flag it, hope to come back to it later. When I do logical reasoning personally, I will flag typically 4 or 5 questions in the section because I just don't want to deal with them in the moment. They could be tough, lengthy, sciencey if that's what I don't like personally. I will just flag that, come back to it later. If it's parallel, principal application, anything that requires a lot more reading, I'll skip it, come back to it. That's my personal way to deal with it because otherwise I'll get bogged down. I'm not really getting anywhere. And knowing that I'm wasting time and things aren't clicking, that stresses me out even more.
Yeah.
But it's also something to practice, to know that you can skip it and come back to it later, and also to notice when you're getting bogged down, when you're not making headway. And so I always recommend meditation to help with that focus because that way you have this meta level analysis of your own thoughts and you can notice when your mind is wandering and bring it back. And to me, that's a muscle you can strengthen. Every moment that you notice that you're not doing what you want to be doing, you notice it, you bring it back, you're strengthening your resolve and your willpower for the next time. Because it's almost in a way, it's like an addiction to stay focused on that one question, but that's not really what's serving you in the end. So that's one thing I'd be thinking about.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, yeah, because like for reading I would read it and then halfway through I'm like, well, what did I just read? My mind just wander off. Because sometimes it's just like the passage is boring, to be honest. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, well, yeah. So, yeah, I guess I will do that. Meditate. Would you say just meditate like a lot of times? Like, because, 3 months before the test, before July. So would you say?
The sooner you start, the better. I mean, even just 5 minutes a day between now and July, especially if you're quarantined, it's a good time to take up a habit like that doesn't require going anywhere. So 5 minutes a day minimum. You could do it on your own, focusing on your breath. There's also tons of apps out there like Headspace and Calm and Waking Up. There's also guided meditations on YouTube as well as podcasts. I'm going to be releasing an LSAT focused meditation as well, hopefully in the next week. Just quick 5 minutes or so on a daily basis could really have a big impact over time.
Awesome.
And there's not much downside to doing it. And the other thing I would suggest is thinking about the fact that you can retake. July is not the end all be all for you. I know that you mentioned wanting to do afternoon versus morning, and that could make a difference in the future, but you still could retake if you needed to. While the LSAT as a whole is incredibly important, no one particular test date will make or break you. And so I would just encourage you to remember that as you're going for July.
I want to do July, and if anything, you can take another one in like August or September. Because exactly. I really want to get like a 170 or above, which is, I know it's a big jump, but I think with all this time, I'm gonna try my best.
That's all you can do. Yeah. But you're better set up than most since you don't really have other obligations, and you can really focus on this very seriously over the next 3 months. And so I think you're in a better position than most to do well on this.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that'll be all for me.
Awesome. I'm really glad we connected, Sochita. Before we sign off, what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
Well, you clear up how to cope with my test anxiety. That was really good. And for the digital test as well. I think, yeah, you give good advice on how, click out the clock and everything. I didn't, because I took it once, so I didn't know that you could do that. And plus, when you're in the test, you're just trying to get through it, right? Do the test and get it done. But next time I will do that. Yeah. So
Awesome. Great.
been really helpful. Yeah, you've been really helpful. Thank you.
Of course, I'm glad to help. Please keep in touch and let me know if you need anything at all as you move forward through the course.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.